Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And it's good to see you all here today. I want to thank Peggy and Bob Case for carrying on last week while we were out of town. I understand it went well. I'm sure we all appreciate that. The before I get started today talking about the Fukazazenji, which we've been studying, I would like to let you know that Zuiko Redding, a teacher from Cedar Rapids, Iowa Zen Center, passed away yesterday afternoon. She had been in hospice. Her death was not unexpected, but still somehow a little shocking. Zuiko some of you may remember because she spoke with the Saturday group some time ago. So those of you who have been with us for many years may remember her. The most recent time was at Centenary Church downtown when we were meeting there on Saturdays. And Zuiko is the Dharma sister of Rosan Yoshida, who is a teacher at the Missouri Zen Center, who many of us know, since both of them were ordained at the same monastery in Japan. Zuiko, I'm sure, read, studied, practiced, and taught the Fukazazenji countless times during her lifetime. So I would like to dedicate our study of the Fukazazenji to her. The last time that we talked about this, there was a passage that we kind of went over quickly. And I would like to return attention to it. Not so much to discuss it right now, but to keep it in mind as we move ahead through the reading today. And the passage goes like this in this translation: have no designs on becoming a Buddha. Sanzen has nothing whatsoever to do with sitting or lying down. Sanzen, in contrast to Zazen, Sanzen means the practice of Zen. Zazen means sitting meditation. So there are other translations of this passage. Give up even the idea of becoming a Buddha. This holds true not only for Zazen, but for all your daily activities. Do not aim to become a Buddha. How could this be connected with sitting or lying down? Have no designs on becoming a Buddha. The practice of Zen has nothing to do with the four bodily attitudes of moving, standing, sitting, or lying down. To be a Buddha has nothing to do with the forms of sitting or lying down. Other translations of the same passage. So today we'll continue on reading the next little section of the Fukazazenji. universal recommendation of Zazen. The Zazen I speak of is not learning meditation. It is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss. This practice, realization of totally culminating enlightenment, the practice realization of totally culminating enlightenment. It is the manifestation of ultimate reality. Traps and snares can never reach it. Once its heart is grasped, you are like a dragon gaining the water, like a tiger taking to the mountains. For you must know that just there in Zazen, the right Dharma is manifesting itself, and that from the first, dullness and distraction are struck aside. When you arise from sitting, move slowly and quietly, calmly and deliberately. Do not rise suddenly or abruptly. In surveying the past, we find that transcendence of both unenlightenment and enlightenment, and dying while either sitting or standing, have all depended entirely on the strength of Zazen. In addition, the bringing about of enlightenment by the opportunity provided by a finger, a banner, a needle, or a mallet, and the effecting of realization with the aid of a hosu, a fist, a staff, or a shout, cannot fully be understood by discriminative thinking. Indeed, it cannot be fully known by the practicing or realization of supernatural powers either. It must be deportment beyond hearing and seeing. It is not a principle that is prior. Is it not, then, a principle that is prior to knowledge and perceptions? This being the case, intelligence or lack of it does not matter. Between the dull and the sharp-witted, there is no distinction. If you concentrate your effort single-mindedly, that in itself is negotiating the way. Practice realization is naturally undefiled. Going forward in practice is a matter of everydayness. Now, as I have done with previous passages, I would like to read, in comparison, a passage from Zhangzi when he writes about sitting meditation. Zhangzi was a Chinese teacher who lived about 2 centuries before Dogen, and Dogen would certainly have been familiar with his writings. He writes, "It is my humble opinion that the practice of seated meditation is the Dharma gate of joy and ease. Some practitioners may develop hatred for this method and become ill. That is because they do not follow the instructions and apply the method correctly. In this respect, the mind is used without a virtuous cause. However, if virtue is cultivated and this method fully understood, then the body is transformed as the 4 great elements, earth, water, fire, and water, are experienced with an insightful attitude of contented lightness. An insightful attitude of contented lightness. The spiritual essence will become openly apparent and obvious. Thoughts become bright and correct. The taste of the Dharma supports the spiritual essence, and this creates an experience that is peaceful, pure, and content. One who understands this truth is like a dragon that has discovered the water or a tiger that has located the mountains. The correct method of mind development requires no other effort once its exact practice is established. as it contains within it an inherent power that is self-sustaining, like the wind blowing the flames and making them stronger as a result. As one progresses to higher levels of awareness, demons may be plentiful, causing all kinds of agreeable and disagreeable experiences. However, if the mind is kept straight and true, these demons can do no harm. When coming out of the state of samadhi, or concentration, or undisturbed mind, we might remain very calm and do not move the body suddenly or with undue haste. A state of serenity should be maintained through the transition from one state to another. When formal meditation practice is over, it is important to maintain the power of developed samadhi in everyday life through appropriate means. Protecting the power of samadhi should be a serious undertaking, like that of protecting the life of a baby. In this way, the power of samadhi will continue to easily increase. So you notice a lot of parallels there. And so Dogen was borrowing heavily from Zangzi, modifying it to be consistent with his own experience of Zazen. And it's common at that time for writers to do so, to borrow heavily from past writers. So I'd like to come back to a couple aspects of this passage of the Fukazazenji. It says, the Zazen I speak of is not learning meditation. Some translations of this are, the Zazen I speak of is not learning step-by-step meditation. So I think what is referred to here is some meditation instructions that involve a certain hierarchy of mind state. So a Zazen is not quite like that. Whether it ends up in the same place or not, I guess, is a matter of discussion. But it is not structured in the same way as some meditation instructions are, where there are levels of meditation that one passes through one at a time, perhaps even in a certain sequence. And then he goes on to say, it is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss, reflecting a passage from Zangzi. It is the Dharma gate of repose and bliss, or it is the Dharma gate of peace and joy, various translations of this passage. The Dharma gate. So it is the way to. So it is, Dogen here, I don't believe, is really saying that your Zazen practice should be a time of unrelenting peace and joy. Certainly, in my experience, and in, I think, most people's experience, it is not. It is sometimes frustrating, sometimes perhaps boring, sometimes painful, sometimes unpleasant. But nonetheless, Dogen is telling us it is the Dharma gate of peace and bliss. It is a practice that can lead to contentedness in our lives. It is, he says, the practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment. The practice realization. Dogen often uses this conjunction of practice realization, saying that realization, nirvana, enlightenment, all the same, are in fact the same as practice. Practice is enlightenment. It's not somewhere else. And to practice is to be enlightened. Later on in the passage, he goes through this, what might be kind of a confusing list when he's talking about opportunities provided by a finger, a banner, a needle, a mallet, a hasu, a fist, a staff, or a shout. These are all referring to Zen stories from China. Zen stories about teachers and students and how the teacher has used some nonverbal means of communication that has led to deep understanding, enlightenment on the part of the student. For instance, there was one Zen teacher who, in response to any question, would just raise a finger. He practiced what came to be called one-finger Zen. And there are various, beatings and shouts and things like this among these stories as well. Not to be advocated as something to mimic, but to be understood as the fact that what is to be taught is beyond words and concepts, or perhaps is before words and concepts. Dogen says, beyond hearing and seeing, understood in a deeper or a different, in any case, way. And then Dogen talks about practice realization, again, using that conjugation of practice and realization, is naturally undefiled. If you concentrate your efforts single-mindedly, that is itself negotiating the way. Practice realization is naturally undefiled. Going forward in practice is a matter of everydayness. I would like to read some other translations of that key part of the Fukazazenji. At least two other. The first by Yokoi and Victoria. They translate that passage as, to practice the way single-heartedly is itself enlightenment. There is no gap between practice and enlightenment, or zazen and daily life. Whereas Okamura translates that, when you practice wholeheartedly, it is truly the practice of the way. Practice enlightenment cannot be defiled. Making the effort to obtain the way is itself the manifestation of the way in your daily life. So a consistent message in Dogen's teachings and in Zen generally is that viewing practice as a means to obtaining something, to obtaining a special state of nirvana or enlightenment, is the wrong way to look at it. That our practice, our sitting practice, and the practice we carry into our everyday activities is itself the Buddha way, is itself enlightenment. It's not somewhere else. So I think I'll stop at that point, and I guess a couple things. Come back to that passage. Have no designs on becoming a Buddha. The Sanzen, the practice of Zen, has nothing whatsoever to do with sitting or lying down. So how do these descriptions of meditation practice, of Zazen, comport with your experience of meditation? Are there any phrases that particularly resonate with you? Or does it sound foreign and outside your experience? What is Dogen's main message here? So I'll stop with that, and we can go into breakout rooms, and we'll get back together in a few moments. Thank you very much for listening today.